Right. Well, while we're waiting,
Yeah. Okay.
why don't we all just rate ourselves? How you feeling today on the scale of dog?
I'm definitely a 9.
You're 9 today?
Yeah, without doubt. That's most days though. But I look more like a 2, to be honest.
Look at the guy on the left-hand corner. What's he? 7.
The 7, that's your style, John, for sure. Yeah, I'm feeling like a 3 today.
What's the highest ranking though? Is it 1 or 9?
Well, that's all a matter of opinion.
All right. Because the one in the 9 looks, the 1 looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's got a sunbeam and everything.
Yeah. It is Friday in some places. All right. I think we'll give 1 more minute and then we'll kick in. So if you're not a dog person, do you have a cat version of this or not?
I do. Would you like to see the scale of cat?
Yeah, let's see the scale of cats.
All right.
That's what happens when you get the co-host access to the share screen. All right. Okay.
Does anybody ever admit to number 4? I'm intrigued.
Number 4?
Yes, I've had some 4s for sure.
Some 4s. I think after having to get up early for twice in a row, I think 5's good for me. Hope we get another one.
I'm feeling like a 2 today. Often have people say they're an 8. Like 8 is the common number. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm an 8.
Yeah. It's all got a mixture of craziness and chaotic.
Yeah.
Early morning session, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, for you latecomers, you missed the dogs and cat show.
Yeah, but thanks to those of you who put numbers in the chat box. We're going to be doing some chat box exercises throughout the day. So this is going to be fun.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to start my little screen show because then we'll get underway. Thanks. We don't expect people showing up on time. Although we did some pre-show entertainment. Yeah. Okay. Can you see my screen okay? And can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Good start. All right. Welcome to our AuthorVerse Expert Series. And today's special guest is Kaylin Huntress. And Kaylin always says to me that people have trouble with his name, so I pronounced it. Well, it says Kaylin. And then apparently it's an Irish meaning for slender and powerful warrior. So there you go. So I don't know whether you probably knew that, but nobody else knew that. So there you go. All right. Move on to the next slide. So just to let you know, this is basically an AuthorVerse Expert Series, which we normally do for our members, but we always open it up for people to come live and have and experience it. But basically, you can join the AuthorVerse and you actually can get access to this replay. So for the people who didn't show up, they can get access to the replay if they've joined AuthorVerse. If you do show up and get access to the replay, obviously, again later, if you want to watch it or go through back over it, because there's going to be a practical lot of exercise as well. So when you join, it's not just a platform, you're becoming part of a community. And the idea is the community also helps with your book launches and things like that. So if you're launching a book and you want to get it to bestseller status, our group can help you do that with various tools and various things to make it happen. As I said, all the expert replays are in the community area. And there's a link to the site. It starts at $99 a year, so I don't think we're charging a fortune for it. But we always add all the expert series as well into it. And so the next little thing we want you to give a little try, and you would have got an email for this, so I don't know if people would have done their homework or not, but you can sign up for our free Trusted Network plugin. And the idea behind it is that, yes, I'd to let him in a second. Oh, can you do that? I should have made you co-host, not Richard. Oh, maybe Caleb can do it. You did it? Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you download our network plugin, what it basically allows you to do is network between people, and you'll actually be able to see people in our community as well. So we've got an option to get a free $10 a month offer. So normally you pay for this. We actually make it complimentary for the first level, and you can actually install the plugin off this link here. So what it means is that once you install the plugin and sign up for the $10 gig, you obviously have to go through and confirm on your LinkedIn profile. And then when you're on the Zoom link that you would have clicked on, you can actually bring it up and there's a little E button on the side, and it'll actually show you everybody who's actually on the actual meeting. So you can actually network with them and see what they're doing, what their LinkedIn profile's like. So if you didn't install a plugin prior to the meeting, it's probably not a good idea to kind of try and do too much now. Maybe take a screenshot of this. But the idea behind it is that you can actually use this as well to network and see other people later. So we only just released our new plugin like a week ago. So there you go. So a little homework for you. About Kaylin. So Kaylin is an American digital nomad living in New Zealand. To go and hold that against you. He's spent over a decade running an online business while traveling with his family. He's an international keynote speaker, multimedia video producer, Web3 thesis and business coach. He's been collaborated on the New York Times and best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, and syndicated radio host and a marketing consultant. Specialises in marketing automation, started his career as a circus acrobat, and now uses their skills to captivate audience in marketing. I'm sure he'd do that in Zoom, but we'll find out. He's a creator of stellar platforms and he helps business grow. So that is my really long presentation. So over to you, Kaylin.
Thanks so much, John. Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me here to speak with the AuthorVerse community. And I'm looking forward to spending some time with all of you today. But first, I want to acknowledge all the attendees who are coming to this virtual meeting from across the ditch and across the globe. I'm going to take over screen sharing from you there, John. Here we go. Boom. This is what we're going to be talking about today, is how to feed AI your book for post-launch content marketing. Now, as John said, I'm an American immigrant to New Zealand, which means I'm descended from generations of immigrants who've left their homelands to seek better fortune across the sea, and are broadcasting to you from Oamaru on the South Island of New Zealand. And I'd like to acknowledge the hereditary keepers of this land, Aotearoa Te Waipunamu, and also to acknowledge our digital ancestors who built this virtual landscape, this metaverse that allows us to congregate across time and space. So thank you to those who came before us, and may we do good works together here today. Now, one of the reasons that I'm so happy that John invited me here to talk with you is because if you don't talk about your book, nobody's going to know about it. You know, it's really common for authors to spend a year or 2 or 5 writing on a topic, and then as soon as your book is in print, you drop it like it's hot, right? Has anybody here ever done that? Show of hands if you have totally left your book and done something else. Yeah. It's kind of like the rite of passage. You know, after you spend so much time deep in a piece of work, you know, you want to move on to something else. But that's exactly the time where you can get the most traction with talking about your book. It's like that Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but the second best time is right now. So I hope that some of the techniques that I share with you today, you can use either in the launch of your next book or possibly to revitalize your last book launch. Now, I'm a book author myself. I wrote a book called Marketing Yourself: How to Elevate Your Personal Platform to the Next Level. And this is a book that I'm going to gift to all of you here today. If you're here live, I'm going to put this at the chat at the end of the presentation. If you're watching this on the replay, there should be a link somewhere nearby. And this ebook is my gift to you. I wrote this for people who have a personal platform that they need to promote. And I wrote this at the very tail end of non-AI generated content. I published in 2021 before ChatGPT. I got it in just under the wire to make it an authentic human written book. And this might not be a big deal in the future, but you know, for those of us who are of that last generation who remember life before the internet, it, you know, feels like a feather in my cap. So show of hands, how many of you are using AI in your writing right now, in your content or your idea generation or your outlining? Who's using AI already? Yeah, most of us. Great. Okay. Now, show of hands, how many of you have been using AI for at least 5 years? Richard, congratulations, Richard. You are the resident expert in the room.
I just have a podcast on it, so yeah.
Show about it.
Yeah. You run the podcast on it. Yeah, exactly. Now, for the rest of us, we're newbies, including me. I'm not an expert in AI, but I have found some ways to use it in my digital marketing agency, Stellar Platforms. This is where I help experts and entrepreneurs set up smart marketing systems. And I've been doing this for a long time. I work with Hall of Fame speakers like Mike Rayburn. I work with nationally syndicated television hosts like Lisa Garr. I work with New York Times bestselling authors like James Twyman. I'm their back-end marketing guy. And I produce a lot of content from their work, which means that when I do email automation or website design, I have to work in areas where I speak with my clients' authentic voice. Lately, I've been doing a lot of white papers where I write a 10 to 15 page think piece to establish my client's thought leadership and then end it with an invitation to a commercial conversation. And as part of the work that I do, I often ghostwrite newsletters where I'll go through a client's book and I'll pull out stories and articles that make good standalone newsletters to pre-plan a year's worth of content. And I've started using ChatGPT to do this work. And what I've learned from this work, this is what I want to share with you today. But first, I want to clarify a little bit of vocabulary, all right? When people use this word platform, there's a lot of different ways to use the word platform. And when I use this word, I mean series of ideas and offerings delivered by an individual person. If you have something to say, something to sell, then you have a platform. And people who have a platform, they typically face the same 4 problems. And the first problem is writing takes time. Even if you enjoy it, it's a time-intensive process. We can accelerate that time with AI, but then that means we have to spend more time in editing. And the second problem is you don't know what to write to promote your products and your services. You might be able to follow your creative inspiration to write something on a topic that really matters to you, but to write something that gets results in the marketplace, you often don't know what's going to work. And so you're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And that means that you hit this feast and famine cycle where sometimes you go viral and sometimes you launch to crickets. And so these are the four problems I see a lot. Is that writing takes time. You don't know, you get writer's block, you don't know what works, and you might not get results. So I want to know which one you struggle with the most. Type a number in the chat box and let me know which one of these four problems you struggle with the most. The time, the writer's block, don't know what works. Yeah, great. Well, these are some problems that we're gonna work on today. Today, I'm gonna give you a workbook. It's in Google Docs and it's full of ChatGPT prompts. And I'm going to demonstrate how to use this workbook, how to upload a book to ChatGPT and have a conversation with it to pull out posts that you can use to promote your book in the future. And so I'm going to demonstrate how to use this workbook, hand it over to you, and we're going to do a couple of working sprints where you're going to be using this material to have conversations with ChatGPT. But before we dive into the exercises, I want to talk about what ChatGPT does and what it doesn't do. It can really amplify your effectiveness when you use it as a co-pilot. It's not a replacement for you and for your voice. It's an augmentation. There's two ways to look at the future of AI. Some people say, oh no, AI can do my job. And other people say, great, AI can do my job. It's all in your perspective. Now, I want to go over some terms real quick. The GPT in ChatGPT, it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That's what the GPT stands for. What it uses, it's generating content and it's been pre-trained on a data set. And then it transforms that data set into, it's like predictive text. When you're writing something and then there's that one word is, oh, is this what you want to say? It's like that on a large scale. And it does this with a large language model, an LLM. And in this context, it uses NLP, natural language processing, but sometimes it hallucinates. And hallucinations are when factual errors are asserted confidently. And I'm going to share with you an example of when this happens. I'm going to play you a 2.5-minute video from Dr. Jeremy Faust on TikTok.
I actually asked OpenAI, 35 female, no past medical history, presents with chest pain, which is pleuritic, worse with breathing, and she takes oral contraception pills. What's the most likely diagnosis? And OpenAI comes out with costochondritis, inflammation of the cartilage connecting the ribs to the breastbone. Then it says, and we'll come back to this, typically caused by trauma or overuse and is exacerbated by the use of oral contraceptive pills.
Video not playing.
This is impressive. First of all, everyone who read that prompt, 35, no past medical.
The video's not playing?
Chest pain, that's pleuritic.
This is a Zoom trick.
No, I was seeing it, no problem.
Okay.
It was fine for me, John. Yeah, it was all good for me.
It's just for me.
Yeah, maybe because you're the host, John.
You are the special one. Okay, I'm going to jump right back in.
Try it again, because I couldn't see the screen then. Here we go.
Pulmonary embolism, blood clot, that's what that is going to be. Because on the boards, that's what that would be, right? But in fact, OpenAI is correct. The most likely diagnosis is costochondritis because so many people have costochondritis that the most common thing is that somebody has costochondritis with symptoms that happen to look a little bit like a classic pulmonary embolism. I want to go back and I wanted to ask OpenAI, what was that whole thing about costochondritis being made more likely by taking oral contraceptive pills? What's the evidence for that? OpenAI came up with this study in the European Journal of Internal Medicine that was apparently supposedly saying that. And I went in Google and I couldn't find it. I went on PubMed and I couldn't find it. I asked OpenAI, give me a reference for that. And I look up that and it's made up. That's not a real paper. It took a real journal, the European Journal of Internal Medicine. It took the last names, I think, and first names of authors who have published in said journal. And it sort of confabulated out of thin air a study that would apparently support this viewpoint that it must have picked up. It must have picked up the idea that OCPs, oral contraceptives, show up on the same page as chest pain causes. And so that it sort of started to figure out, well, maybe costochondritis and oral contraceptives are related, when in fact, that's a red herring. It's really that people who are taking oral contraceptives have a higher risk of a pulmonary embolism, and those travel together on these internet pages, and OpenAI got fooled. But rather than admit that, I asked OpenAI for links and are you sure you're not wrong? And it stood its ground. So I was blown away by the accuracy of so much of what I did with the platform, OpenAI, but I was also scared that it was willing to lie to me to make up something to support a contention that was not real.
So that's what we need to be cautious of. OpenAI and ChatGPT, they can produce fast bullshit. Like this image, it took me 45 seconds to make this image in Midjourney. And so you can create content, but it's not going to be accurate. There's a flattening of our communication that's happening where you can take a single bullet point and turn it into a long email that you pretend you wrote, and that when you send it, the recipient is going to make a single bullet point out of that long email they pretend they read. As Dr. Jason Fox says, AI mirrors our collective mediocrity. And the big mistake that people make with AI is they think that it's going to be this one smart assistant who can handle all the administrative tasks and decide what is and isn't important. But that's a mistake because ChatGPT is not one smart assistant. It is infinite dumb assistants. If you had a million monkeys pounding away on typewriters, eventually they would produce the works of Shakespeare. But there's going to be a lot of garbage that's produced before that happens. Copywriter Brooklyn Nash says that AI gets the job done like instant coffee gets the job done. And there's a time and a place for instant coffee. If you're in a motel at 5 a.m. in Wichita and you got to hit the road, instant coffee will get the job done, but you don't want to drink it every day. And you don't want to share that with others as an example of your work. So I do want you to be cautious with what we generate today. And when we do it, there's this old adage in programming, garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. And so if you're getting bad results from ChatGPT, then we need to work on the prompts. I really like the framing of role, task, format. You are a marketer. I want you to write an article and provide it to me in Markdown. You are a best-selling author. I want you to write a blog post and present it to me as a PDF. The more clear you can be with your instructions to these infinite dumb assistants, the higher likelihood that you're going to get good results. What we're going to use today is the CARE framework: character, accomplishments, request, and examples. And the way the CARE framework goes is here. I'll just read out to you what we're going to be doing in a few minutes. I'm doing some backstage stuff. Sorry, I thought I had this pulled up. Here we go. One moment. Great. All right, so here's an example of the CARE framework. You are an award-winning book reviewer. You are known for writing concisely and poetically, and your writing has won numerous awards for its depth and its ability to connect emotionally with the reader. Read this content and give me a synopsis of the main topics discussed, first in a paragraph, and then in 5 bullet points. That's what we're going to be doing later today, is using the CARE framework to have this conversation with ChatGPT, with our infinite dumb assistants. Now, the tool I'm going to be using today for the demonstration is ChatGPT, but there's a bunch of others. There's Microsoft's Copilot, there's Google's Gemini, there's Claude and Perplexity, and these all have different advantages and disadvantages. But ChatGPT, if you're on a paid plan, it lets you upload a PDF. If you're not on a paid plan, you can use pdf.ai. That's the website, pdf.ai. The results aren't as good as they are with ChatGPT, but if you don't have a paid plan, then that's what I would recommend. Now, if you do have a ChatGPT plan, then I recommend that you get signed in. But before we dive into all of that, I'd like to have a conversation about the different types of AI tools that are out there. Does anybody use something other than ChatGPT? And if so, what's your reasoning? Why do you like it better? Richard?
Well, I use a combination of different tools. I do use Gemini from Google. I also use Copilot a lot because it integrates directly into all the Microsoft suite of tools. So that can be extremely useful at times. But a lot of the times I'll do it because I want a different perspective on things. So Gemini is better, say, if you want to try and write a script, I've found, whereas ChatGPT is better for the analytical side of things. But as I say, building things together, so if you're using them within Word documents, that's been extremely useful to use Copilot. But you only get that if you're in the full Copilot, say the Microsoft 365 universe, which is a paid thing.
And what would you say is one of the deficiencies of ChatGPT that is served better in Copilot?
It's actually the same back end. It's exactly the same back end. The two are the same technologies. That's why we pop over to Gemini on occasion. But it is all down, as you've correctly said, to how you handle the prompt. So getting a properly structured prompt, as I teach, I mean, you're doing exactly the same thing here. So that's why I'm happy with what I'm seeing today. If you get the prompt right, great. If you don't, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, great. Does anybody else want to share? What have you found with using AI?
I'll share.
Yeah, Chuck.
So I use Claude Sonnet 3.5. It came out, I think, about a month ago. And when it's stacked up in the comparisons with the other LLMs in terms of reasoning and writing capability and how it performs on tests and so on, it's superior to ChatGPT 4. So, I like the idea of going back and forth between different LLMs to see what you're getting. Some days, others perform better. But Sonnet's really quite good. And the thing that I like about it, let's say, I've got a PDF of an industry report that's 50 pages and it's full of graphs and it's very dense, I can give me the 2-page executive summary, give me the 10 top takeaways. And then after I get the takeaways, I'm like, could you create a 1-page infographic that gives me a visual of what those takeaways are? And as executives and busy entrepreneurs, a lot of us are very visually graphic. And so that's a very nice feature that Claude 3.5 Sonnet provides that ChatGPT cannot provide.
Great point, Chuck. Yeah. And these differentiations will become more apparent over time. Some LLMs are going to excel in one area and some user interfaces are going to excel in another. And I'm going to use ChatGPT right now just because it's, the lingua franca. It's the oldest on the block, and it's the one that most people are familiar with. And so to do that, I'm going to make myself big, and I'm going to put this workbook over my shoulder, so that you can, hey, Zoom, you're not supposed to do that. There we go. Sorry for the infinity mode. So this is what the workbook is going to look like. It's in Google Docs. And when I give it to you, it's going to be in a link that should just duplicate. So the link that I give you, it'll say, hey, do you want to make a copy of the ChatGPT workbook? And you make a copy, and it'll make a copy of this template into your Google Drive. So if you're not signed into a Google account, now's a good time to get signed in. If for any reason you can't make edits, then I want you to follow the instructions right here at the top. It'll tell you to go to File, Make a Copy, to make a copy in your own drive, because you can't edit the template that I made, but if you make a copy, you can edit it. I also want to highlight the outline sidebar. There's this button way over here in the upper left, where if you show the document outline, then it lets you navigate so that you can click on these headings to navigate through it. And up here at the table of contents, these are the 3 sections in this workbook. First, I'm going to demonstrate how to research and brainstorm, and we're going to do an exercise just to get you into the Google Doc and using it with ChatGPT. We've got a section on how to feed AI your book, and then there's a section on the content calendar. And up here at the top is a place to paste stuff where you can copy out of ChatGPT and paste right here and hit enter, and you can make a list of things that you want top of mind. Okay. Now for this first section, the research and brainstorm, it's just to kind of warm up your fingers, to get you going. We're not going to get through all of these today, but if you're watching this on the replay and you want to get more familiar with prompt engineering, these are all prompts that you can use. Here, let me pop over to the other side. There we go. All right. And so this first one, I'm just going to copy this prompt. What is the longest movie title in the world? I'm going to come over to ChatGPT and start a new chat. And I'm going to paste this. Now, before I hit enter, does anybody have any guesses for what the longest movie title in the world is? Or does anybody know? Let's ask the bots. And this is correct. The longest movie title in the world is Night of the Day of the Dawn of the Son of the Bride of the Return of the Revenge of the Terror of the Attack of the Evil Mutant Hellbound Flesh-Eating Subhumanoid Zombified Living Dead Part 2 in shocking 2D. This is an actual movie from 1991. And so if we wanted to say, oh, great, ChatGPT gave me a great answer, I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to follow these instructions right here. I'm going to press enter twice after the prompt and then paste. And so if you want to keep a running archive of what you're asking, this is a way that you can do it. Okay. So now I'm going to copy this. If I do this in the same chat, it's going to do it in the context of what I just asked it. But I can do a new chat if I want it to come in fresh. And in my workbooks, a lot of times there's a word in all caps. And I do that so you can double click it and change it. So I just double clicked on product. You are selling my book, Marketing Yourself. Try to sell this to me, but make it sound more valuable than it is and convince me to buy it. And then it gives me a whole bunch of stuff. It's tailored for all career stages. It's practical and easy to implement techniques. It's no fluff, straightforward. I'm getting some phrases here that I might like. And so I might take that phrase and put it up at the top in my good stuff. I'm just going to paste that right there to say, hey, I'm going to save this and come back to it later. And you can do this as you're going. You know, if you find the good stuff, like the competitive edge, that might belong in the good stuff. I'll put that there, right? but I might not like the way that it gives me this. And so on the next section, after the research and brainstorm section, I've got a section on prompt response improvements. If you don't like what you're getting from ChatGPT, you could say, try again, but this time be more personal, be more engaging, make it sound smarter. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to say, try again, but this time make it sound smarter. And so now it's going to revise what it does. This is the infinite monkeys we have right here that I can, like, unparalleled insights. I like that, but I don't like discerning professionals. So I can just take this piece and copy it and go and paste it in the good stuff. You could say, now make them more attention grabbing, or add more details, or provide specific examples. My favorite is give me 10 more ideas. The advantage is that we have an infinite number of dumb assistants. And so just getting more and more ideas, that's what we can do. So I'm going to give you the workbook now. I don't want you to get to this section of feed AI your book. I want you to work with the things before that. Okay, and we're going to take about 3 minutes, and you're going to make a copy of this ChatGPT workbook and then ask it a couple of questions. That's up at the top. So if you're here live, you've got the link in the chat box. If you're watching on the replay, the chat's somewhere nearby. Go ahead and click on that link and make a copy of the Google Doc and open it up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and I'm going to put it here in my box. I'm also going to play some music for 3 minutes. If you don't like the music, just go ahead and turn the volume down on your speakers, and you'll see by my timer when it's going to be done. And if you have any questions, just pipe up. All right, come on back to Zoom. Find it so interesting. The last 5 times I've done that exercise, it's always given me the same title, but it hallucinates, and it gave a bunch of you a different title. That's fascinating. What else did you find while we were doing that exercise? Anybody have any problems with the mechanics getting the workbook loaded? I can hear somebody talking, but not very loudly. Okay. All right. Well, now let's move on to the next exercise. Okay. The next exercise is where we're actually going to feed AI your book. So I'm going to make myself big again. I'm going to spotlight myself here in Zoom. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to actually start a new chat and add my book to this chat, okay? So in the ChatGPT workbook, I'm going to scroll down to the section that says Feed AI Your Book. And you can use a PDF of your existing work if you're on a paid plan. You can also just copy and paste the blog post if what you want is to get the voice, all right? So I'm going to copy this first prompt. This is the one using the CARE framework that I narrated earlier. So I'm going to copy this, come over to ChatGPT, and I'm going to hit this little attachment button and upload from computer. And then it's going to say, what file do you want to upload? I'm going to upload the manuscript for my book, Marketing Yourself. And then I'm going to paste this prompt. And now it doesn't take that long. It's going to read the entire book pretty fast. It's reading the documents, and then it gives me a synopsis. And then the key points here: personal statement development. My first chapter is about developing a personal statement. Storytelling and case studies, also something I talk a lot about. Content marketing strategies. Platform utilization, kind of blah. Practical action steps. You know, it's done better than this before. This is kind of tepid. And so since I don't like this very much, I'm going to use one of these prompt response improvements. Try again. Now make it more attention grabbing. Try again. And now make it more attention grabbing. And so now it's going to have more wow in it. It's a dynamic guide that transforms the way professionals present and promote themselves. I like that. That goes in the good stuff. So I'm going to come right up here to the top and paste that there. And then just go through and do and find things that are good, right? And after I get bored with that, I can come back to my ChatGPT workbook and then find the next one. How would you describe the voice and style of the author? And I ask this question to prime it. I want to know how this particular GPT, which is different than the other chats that I use, how this one interprets my voice. It can be described as both engaging and authoritative, combining a conversational tone with practical insights, right? And there's some good phrases in here I might want to use. And if the author was to write more, let's change the adjective. If the author was to write more, let's say academically, what would that sound like? Rewrite a passage from the middle and make it more academic. So if I'm writing an article for an academic journal, it might be good to take a piece of my book and go ahead and rewrite it so it sounds more academic. And it gives me the original passage and then the academic version. And I might find some things in here, some phrases that I like to add to the good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to set another timer for 3 minutes and play some music again. And I'd like you to upload the PDF of your book and see what you can get ChatGPT to say to you about it. Any questions? Just put them in chat. All right, let's come on back to Zoom for a moment of discussion. How was that? What did you find?
I thought it was fantastic. That was the coolest thing. And then you had told me to tell it to be a critical reviewer, and it came up and it told me areas that it felt my book was weak on. So that was great. Like, I was like, this is the coolest thing.
Yeah, normally we'd have to hire a book reviewer or convince one to read the entire book and give us an in-depth analysis. But now this might be a really low-level analysis, but it's going to hit not only the major points in your book, but also the major points in books in general. AI is like the great average. And so it's looking at all of the language to find the most average response.
And I just think it was perfect because my book's about publishing and about different ways to publish and the advantages of hybrid publishing and stuff like that. And so when you prompted me to tell it to be the critical reviewer, it came back and said, yeah, it's really good, but he kind of blew past like the amount of time that could be involved or the expense that could be involved, those things, which I absolutely, played down as I wrote my book. And I'm like, okay, now, maybe those are areas I should address. So thank you. That was really cool.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Everett. Great. Does anyone else have something they'd like to share?
I will. I like the tone and the style. I've not used that as a prompt before, and I thought it was spot on. And so that was really great. And then your suggestion as a prompt to have it write a press release based on the content, that was great too. So that was very well received. Thank you very much.
Great, glad to hear it. Yeah, Meredith, what did you find?
Yeah, Kaylin and I had so much fun. That was amazing. And just the speed, right? And the shift to be able to go, right, content, press release, review, all very quickly. So just looking at it from all different perspectives. Just reading ahead, some of the prompts there around demographics and just looking at different kind of slices of the market and to see how they might perceive it or, what they might want to access is really exciting.
Great. That's awesome. Now I want to move on to the next section about content, since that's really what we're here for today, is to figure out how to create the content. But I want to highlight a question that came in through the chat. Richard Ray, you might be better suited to answer this than me. If you put books in ChatGPT, is it true? Does it become public domain so that people can access it and represent it as their own thoughts without referencing the author? Is that true?
It's a really tricky question to answer. Depending on how you've got your settings in ChatGPT, you can tell it to not make it part of the learning going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But that is technically only in the paid version, if I remember correctly. If you're using the free version, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey. The thing is that there's a really interesting legal situation happening right now, which is that OpenAI, the people behind ChatGPT, have turned around and said, if you are sued over potentially infringing copyright through using ChatGPT, they'll back you up. So obviously they're a bit concerned about it as well. So I think they're endeavoring not to, but there was a report recently where one of the senior people at OpenAI went, look, if it's on the internet, if you put it on the internet, it's fair game, essentially. So it's quite an interesting scenario. Short version of the answer is, you should be okay. It shouldn't happen word for word, but don't be surprised if there's a variation of what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be cautious.
Yeah.
Anish.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere when 4 came out that OpenAI said they are not going to use any of our content for learning going forward. So I thought that was a generic statement they might have made. Richard, maybe you can confirm that, but I remember reading that because we use OpenAI's large language models for our AI SaaS platform. So I am pretty sure I read that somewhere, but I don't know where I read it.
You may be absolutely right. There's so much going on with this. Certainly, when you're looking at some of these things, the legal status of this is moving so quickly. So what they say and what they do, though, may be two totally different things. I mean, you're using GPT-4. If you use GPT 4.0, which is a little bit more advanced, it's working off of a different model.
Yeah.
So there's some very cool stuff within that. It has to get its information from somewhere. And if they've already trained it for several years, and of course we're at GPT 4.0 and 5's out in the not too distant future, there's been version 1, 2, 3. So that is something that they've got to have got the information from somewhere. And to keep improving it and to keep it up to date, don't forget, you can always say to ChatGPT, look on the internet for this. It's trained up to a certain point in time. I forget what the current date is, but you can say, check on the internet for this. And this actually helps with the hallucinations as well, by the way.
Yeah, good point. Awesome. Thank you, Richard. That's really helpful. I want to talk with you about the content calendar. So we've only got about 10 minutes left today. And what we're going to be using comes from my content calendar workbook, where I often help people answer this question of what do I write? How do I plan in advance what I'm going to be writing? And I think it's helpful to break your content into 4 levels. You have a thesis, you have themes, you have thoughts, and you have threads. Your thesis would be like the title of your book, and your themes would be the categories on Amazon where people could find your book. You might have a number of different articles and many different newsletters and even more tweets. And so if we divided these up in numbers, we could say you've got, for every one book, you've got 4 categories, let's say 20 articles, and 52 newsletters. And you can break these up so that your thesis is your big statement. Your thoughts are longer, 2,000 to 3,000 word articles. Your threads are shorter, 300 to 500 word articles. And you could even have tweets, like 365 of them. But the thing about threads is threads are fragile. They don't have to hold a whole lot of weight. It's just a tiny little idea. Your themes are thicker. So when you're producing a volume of content, you don't need to think that every single thread has to matter. And that'll prevent you from getting tripped up. Now, here's an example. If I had for my thesis, content production, my 4 categories could be writing the content, publishing the content, planning, and delegating it. One of my thoughts, one of my articles could be producing 12 months of content in 3 hours. That's what I do with my content creation workshop. And one of my threads is the 7-step newsletter formula that makes writing easy. And that's an article that I have. And this 7-step newsletter formula is something you can get in the slides. I'll give you a way to get the slides at the end of our hour together. But what we're going to do is we're going to leverage these infinite dumb assistants. We're going to combine what we're doing with ChatGPT with the content calendar workbook. And so I'm going to give you a link to another workbook, and it's going to look like this. The link is just like last time. It's going to say, hey, make a copy. And where this comes from is my Cornerstone workbooks. When I give you the ebook for marketing yourself, every chapter has a companion workbook. And there's one for every chapter in your positioning and your profit and your sales, your strategy and your systems. And every one of these workbooks has a 5 to 10 minute video, as well as a link to the Google Doc or the Trello board where you can actually do this work. And so with the content calendar workbook, you can double click on anything that's in caps to change it. Like instead of template, I'm going to write Kaylin's content calendar workbook, or I could do the name of my thesis here, and then all the same instructions of how to duplicate it if you get in any troubles. And there's a lot of stuff in here. So I'm giving you a big resource that you don't have to get through all of it today. What I want you to focus on is this first section. What's your thesis? Put in the title of your book. Ask ChatGPT, what are the 4 categories where this book would show in Amazon? What are 12 articles that I could write about this? What are 52 newsletter titles? What are 365 tweets? You're going to hit the upper limit of about 30, but you can, because the ChatGPT will let you do 30 at a time. So, but just iterate, play with a little bit. I'm going to put the link for this in the chat box so that you can make a copy of the content calendar workbook. And I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And if you have any questions, just type them in the chat box. Okay, let's all come back to Zoom. So I know there's a lot of material in there. There's a lot to be done. But do you see how this could help you pre-populate content for your next book launch? What did you find? What was interesting? What was difficult? Anything to share?
I think the structure that you are helping us with in this free workbook, thank you so much, Aidan, for it. I think that is very interesting to help write a book, or at least get started, because I think a writer's block is one of the biggest things that a lot of people face. I do. So I think I find it very interesting. I did not do your exercise scale, and I was just reading your template. And at the end, I read your one-liner is, right? You help experts and entrepreneurs to create smart marketing systems. And I think a lot of coaches, consultants, leaders struggle with a lack of a system to repeat something again and again and again. So I think with your system, we can not only write a book, but it will also give us ideas of how to market it. I mean, you're going to write a book with the end financial result in mind, because the content will obviously lead into sales and results, which will help you write a book that is sellable. So you'll also get the financial results, which is the 4th problem that you presented on your slides earlier. So I think that's what I find very interesting in the stuff you're sharing with us today.
Great. I'm glad to hear that, Anish. Thank you for sharing that.
Kylan, can I make a comment, please?
Yeah, sure, Richard.
Okay, great. So firstly, a little late to this meeting, but my marketing manager, Kessler, has been here, which has been awesome. I'm 56. I'm a bit of a technophobe, and so this is all very new to me. But I think as an author of 2 books, which are very much in support of my business, which is in the executive search space, it is the opportunity here is to outsource to an expert, which may be you. You know, the reality is, for most business people, especially myself, we're so busy and there's so much new technology and new things happening and new amazing ways to do things and so on. I don't have the capacity to be across it. So, you know, I'd be certainly interested in talking to you, you know, later, but I'd say potentially for, you know, for most people in this conversation is that, you know, I can write a great book.
But all the other stuff.
But the other stuff, it's like, why not just engage somebody that is their expertise and just pay them to do that?
A lot of the work that I do, Richard. Yeah.
So that my book realizes its full potential.
Yeah. And that's what I love to help people do, is get their work to realize their full potential. So I'm going to give you 3 final resources. And the first is a survey. If you want to get the slides from today's presentation, I'm happy to give them to you. I just asked for some feedback on how I did. And so you can fill out this survey anonymously if you like, or if you'd like to subscribe to my newsletter, it's a great way to do it. I'm also going to give you a copy of an ebook copy of my book, Marketing Yourself, so that this will help you elevate your own personal platform. And then I'm going to invite all of you to a free marketing consultation. This is the business that I do, and the work I like to do is working with authors like you. And so all I ask you to do is to fill out this form, gives me some information on your business and where you're looking to go and how you want to get there. And then that allows me to come to the conversation prepared with ideas. After you fill out this form, you'll get access to my scheduling calendar, and we'll schedule a free 30-minute marketing consultation, and I'll give you some free advice. But I want to thank all of you for spending this time with me today. I'm going to stick around if anybody would like to hang out and chat. But if anybody needs to skedaddle, then we've reached the end of our time today. John, thank you so much for inviting me in to talk with your community.
It's great, Colin. That's really good. Yeah, and a lot of practical stuff. So that's really a good way to sort of do it. I think sometimes people walk away with presentations and forget it 5 minutes later. So at least we've got some. We'll put all these resources up in the member area as well, so you can grab it easier too. So yeah, excellent. Has anybody else got any sort of thoughts, or what are you going to do? What are one thing you're going to do when you leave on here today on this?
Well, for me, John, it looks like from your domain name, you're in Australia, right?
Yes, although most of our clients are in America, interesting enough.
Yeah, right. Whereabouts in Australia are you?
Sydney. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in Brisbane, right?
Right,
So obviously, you know, I really appreciate, I got this as a random email saying, do you want to come along? And even though I've only been in the session for 30 minutes of the hour, you know, Colin, I definitely want to have a chat to you about, you know, how we could work together.
Great.
Excellent. That's cool.
Yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, John, I haven't had any exposure to your community before, but I saw Kalen's post on LinkedIn yesterday, and I certainly can vouch for Kalen's work. He did this for me last year. I published a book, ridiculously busy, didn't have time to do anything, and just said, look, can you just help me? I just need email newsletters. And, you know, for a small fee, for the value that it gave me, he wrote 12 email newsletters, he wrote 50 social media posts, and it was bang on in my voice. I've basically published them without any edits. I mean, that is just unheard of. So his ability to get in and understand your head, and then obviously all the tools he has access to, is just incredible. So that's an unpaid, unendorsed endorsement, or unprompted endorsement.
I think it's the biggest problem. People don't promote their book after they publish it. We do a lot of books. We publish a lot of books, and I would say 80% of people never do anything after post-launch. They just sit on it and think that job's done, tick the box, and then move on. You think that book can be around for another 500 years, right? So at the end of the day, why aren't you promoting it? And I think it's just about that time, and it's very hard to keep on just say, buy my book, buy my book. So you need to kind of go deep on it. You need to kind of figure out your table of contents is your marketing plan for the next 2 years. People don't think about that. And I think you can do podcasts on each chapter, you can do interviews, you can do whatever, but people forget about that. And they say, buy my book, here's the back of the cover of the book, buy that. But it's easy to actually go deep on the book.
That's a great way to put it, John, that your table of contents is your marketing plan. I love it. And it reminds me of there's a book called Company of One by Paul Jarvis. And he was one of the early solopreneurs, somebody who, that's his book, is Company of One, How to Run a Business Where It's Just You.
Which ChatGPT is going to end up being eventually going to be not a single person.
Yeah. But he did that was his podcast, was every issue of his podcast was a chapter of his book where he would talk about that chapter with somebody else, somebody that was in that chapter or somebody who knew something relevant about it. And he made the Company of One podcast, the entire series, before his book launched. So that when the book launched, he had all of this content ready to go.
Yeah, a bit of preparation in advance. I mean, the trouble is, like, people writing books, they kind of like don't think about anything else prior to it, but we like to sort of do a bit of a build up and start talking about it early, not just surprise people out of the blue. We surprise people with a book outside, like suddenly you've written it, there's a low level of interest then. You've got a very short time. If you build up to it, then people will stick with you.
Right.
Well, and now, John, if you come out with a book that nobody knows you've been writing, they just think you wrote it through AI anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why you knocked that up in 5 minutes, right? So, is it real? That's always the question, isn't it? Like,
I didn't know you were writing a book. Well, yeah, I didn't know you were writing a book. Well, I did it Friday.
Yeah.
Alan, you, in response to your questions, and John, yours too, my course of action is to graciously accept the gifts that you've given, both in the resources and the opportunity to meet with you. And as someone who helps publish books, I definitely need to have this conversation with you about helping our clients.
Great.
So thank you.
I'd love to talk to you more.
Everett is sort of our co-founder of AuthorVerse, so we've had an interesting second pass this long, and the reprobates from somewhere else. So basically, we've got so Everett helps with the original community this was set up under. So Everett and I have sort of done quite a lot of things together over the years, including the Authority book.
Thank you.
So Kaylin, are you based in New Zealand?
I am. Yes, I've been living in New Zealand for 6 years.
Right, okay, but okay, excellent. I've just sent you a LinkedIn connection request, as I have to you also, John North. So
so I highly recommend you install that plugin as well, because that'll help you connect with everybody. We'll add too.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, we were actually already connected, I think. I'm in Brisbane as well.
Are you? Okay. Well, it's magnificent to talk to another Richard. Look, if I could speak from my own experience, and again, just joining this conversation, so I apologise if I'm covering off some ground. I think John North, the comment you made, so true. I wrote a book in 2015. I've sold over 15,000 copies of it.
Okay.
I never had a book launch. And I've never had strategy around that book.
Even putting out a press release on your book's a good thing to do because it gets your SEO juice, right? So there's plenty. Well,
this is the thing, right? I often say I'm a moron, right? I'm a moron. Okay, I'm not obviously a moron about my core business, but I'm a moron in terms of I just don't know. I wrote a book because I felt it would be of value, and it sold 15,000 copies, and I've had amazing feedback, but I've never had any kind of marketing strategy or ChatGPT strategy or anything to really, extract the true value out of that. So, again, even though I've joined this conversation late, I mean, just the opportunity to go, I invested, I don't know, hours, probably 300 hours into writing that book. You want a return on investment, right?
Right, and your can be amplified. It's like the difference between getting somewhere on a bicycle and getting somewhere on a motorcycle. If you have an hour, you can get a lot farther on a motorcycle. And if you apply some marketing strategies to your book launch, you can get a lot farther.
Yep. So I love it.
One thing I remember too, we're having 2 more sessions with Caleb. We've actually booked him for 2 more sessions. I think one's in October and one's in September, October. I think remembering one's in November. So you can actually go to that website and book those 2 if you want. So you just hit the refresh page and book it again.
That's excellent. I think the other thing too, John, is you need to grow a beard.
Me,
try.
This is the best you got to go.
Here's where it's at. I'm sure the ladies here would agree. You need a handsome beard.
Is that right? Okay, so we'll have to start a beard group then. Looks like I'm sort of got a head start on me here. Yeah, Richard.
Okay, good.
We're saying no.
Has anybody got any other questions with Callan or anything else they want to feedback? Otherwise, we'll probably wrap it up because we don't want to use up too much of his time, of course, ultimately. Cool. All right. So don't forget to re-register or register for the other sessions, because obviously as we build up to this, we'll start marketing again, but you can get in early.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, John. The next session is going to be 5 business models behind books. Share the different business models that I've seen my different clients and customers use to support their author lifestyle. And the next one after that in November is the 4 cornerstones of your personal platform.
A bit more detail on the second page.
Sign me up.
There you go.
All right, I will see you there.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Have fun out there.
Thank you, Kaylin. That was wonderful.
Great. Bye.
Yeah, great session.
There you go.